Learning art is super duper tough, and I think by learning it alone, you're just making it harder for yourself for no particular reason. So what I'm really going to talk about is the importance of getting feedback and critiques. And I think we've all encountered the situation where you look at your own art and you're just not really very satisfied with it. It looks bad to you, but you're not really sure why. And how are you supposed to solve a problem when you don't even know what the problem is? So that's where other people can help. It's like a mega shortcut in a way to get people to give feedback on your art, because people who are better than you, they've already experienced all the issues you're currently having, so they can far more easily identify your problems and how to fix it. So someone was asking whether if critique is necessarily only useful if it comes from a person who is better than you, right? And the answer is not necessarily. But if it's coming from a person with an untrained eye, you have to be a little bit careful, right? A trained artist can easily tell the difference between what they feel like is a mistake versus what their preference is. And actually, untrained people are pretty good at telling mistakes for themselves, but there's a few problems. One is that sometimes they can't tell the difference between what's an actual error and their own preferences. And the second is that even if they can identify the mistake, they might not know how to fix it. You may not always want to follow their feedback. So ironically, the time when critique is most useful is when you feel the best about your art. You guys have seen that squiggly graph, right? About art eye and art skill, right? When your art skill is more developed than your ability to perceive art, and you think, wow, my art is so good, no notes, it's perfect, ship it. That is the best time to get feedback, because that will push you even further. Does anyone feel like it's like asking for critique makes them nervous, or when they get critique, they get kind of upset when people tell them things they don't like about their art? Does anyone have that feeling? So I've known some people that really hate getting any kind of criticism on their work. And I've known people even that work professionally in the industry that are terrible at getting critique. So that's something you have to work through. That's definitely not a good trait to have. The solution is not getting thicker skin. Thicker skin is not the point here. I think the trick here is to separate yourself from your craft. Just because someone said something about your art, someone said something where your art isn't that strong, it doesn't mean that you did a bad job. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that there's something about the thing you made that could be better. And that's true of every art. Even the best art in the world, there is probably something they could have done that could have been better. Let's say I don't know, fancy video game splash art. It can be improved too. In fact, that's why it goes through so many rounds and revisions, because people are kind of critiquing it, giving feedback, giving the artist ways to improve the art. Everything can be improved. The best artists in the world are getting critique and being told how to improve their art. So obviously, it's totally normal that you would get the same critique too, right? Just remember, all art can be better, so you don't need to feel upset when you receive critique. Let's talk about how we can get critiques, right? Because I'm talking a lot about why critiques are amazing, they're so good, but where do you get them? Answer one, have friends that are better than you. And that's not necessarily easy to do. I can explain to you how I got my art friends that are better than me. All you have to do is you be a programmer for 10 years, okay? Then after you're a programmer for 10 years, you join some art companies that have really good artists in there as a programmer. And then while you're a programmer at the company, you decide, actually, I kind of want to learn how to draw. But then, since you work at a game company with amazing artists, you just have a lot of people surrounding you that are amazing artists. And then they see their pet programmer trying to learn how to draw, and they're like, oh, that's so cute. Look at the little programmer. They want to draw. And they try to help you. If that's not feasible, I have another option, which is 2, money. There are art classes everywhere online with super qualified, incredible teachers teaching. So I always say when you're going to find art classes, always find a class where you can get feedback on your homework, right? Because I think personal feedback is the most important thing for growth. But they can be pretty expensive. There's also certain Discord communities that have a critique culture, so you can ask there. But since this is something that you're asking from strangers and you're getting for free, the quality can really vary. And also, just because you post your work in these kind of Discord servers, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will immediately get critiques, right? So I can give you a couple of tips to help you maybe get critiques a little bit more easily. There's one thing you have to remember about getting critiques. If you receive a critique from the other person, it is a favor they are doing for you, okay? That person may enjoy giving critiques. However, they are doing work just for you, so even if you don't agree with the critique, you should be grateful and say thank you, even if you don't agree. If you just drop your art and say, roast me, people don't even know where to get started. Especially if you're a beginner artist, they could improve everything about your art piece. Like, do you really want them to write an entire book on how to get better at art? Like, you're asking way too much. So it's helpful if you struggle with a specific portion of your art. Like, for instance, I felt like I really struggled with the anatomy of the legs. Could I get help with that? That's a much more reasonable ask. Being a community member also helps. If you just joined the server, all you do is shill your Twitter, shill your Twitch, and then demand critiques. People aren't really incentivized to give you one, right? Like, who are you? Why do they want to give you a critique versus this community member over here that is very cheerful and very friendly and everyone likes? There's no real reason to do that. So if you want to get critiques, a good way to get them is to give them first. Because why would they give a critique to a stranger they don't even know? So you stop being a stranger. So some easy pointers about giving critiques, right? One is to be nice, okay? I know it's popular online to like roast people's art and to be really mean about it for entertainment, but there's no need to really do that. You can say the same thing in a nice way or in a mean way, just say it in a nice way. There's no need to be mean. Make sure to meet the artist at their level. If you've been drawing for a while and you, for instance, encounter someone who is just barely learning to draw faces for the first time. So they're a beginner and they're just starting out and their faces don't look that great just yet. So don't ask them to do something they can't do yet. If they're like barely able to draw straight lines, don't ask them to rotate skulls in 3D in their head. They can't do that yet, so there's no point telling them that yet. And there's also being specific with giving critique. If someone tells you, hey, I'm struggling with the leg anatomy, don't tell them, well, actually, you just need to read Loomis. That's not helpful. Reading Loomis, will it be helpful? Probably, but what do you mean read Loomis? Give them something more actionable. Simply learn all the fundamentals, then you will be better. Thanks for nothing. That's not really a critique, right? Not everybody feels qualified to give critique, right? I know that when I was like briefly working as a concept artist, I found it very difficult to give critiques because I felt like everyone was better than me. So you don't have to force it if you don't feel like you're qualified, but you can always engage in the community in other positive ways. Just tell people you love their work, or talk about their work, or talk about anything, right? Just get involved. There's also one more reason why I think people should give critiques, other than trying to get critiques of their own. I've mentioned this before, but the reason I give critiques is purely selfish. I want to get better at giving feedback. If you're gonna work as a professional artist, giving feedback is gonna be a pretty big part of your role, right? Like I said, all art can be improved. So they want as many artists to look at the art as possible, so the art can be as good as possible. So that's a skill you actually have to learn. I think it's a super important skill in the industry, which is why I give critiques, by the way. And I'm just practicing when I do it. Not only is it good for other people, it's also good for yourself. It trains your critical eye, it trains your, communication skills. It's good for you to do it too, so why not? Anyway, in the end, learning art is the same as literally learning any other thing. It's much easier to do it with other people. Why learn from your own mistakes if you can learn from other people's mistakes, right? It's so much faster, it's so much more efficient, it's so much easier, and it's more fun to have people to learn with you, right? So yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say about learning art together and giving and receiving critique.